They saw a man in a hoodie, just another passenger to be easily dismissed. What they didn't know was they were trying to kick the owner of the entire airline out of his own seat. The soft leather of seat 1A felt like a familiar embrace. It was my favorite seat on any of our Boeing 777s. From here, I had a perfect, unobstructed view out the window and enough legroom to stretch out completely. A small luxury for a man of my height. The pre-flight cabin buzz was a symphony I knew by heart. The gentle click of overhead bins, the low murmur of conversations, the faint, clean scent of sterilized air. I wasn't flying private today. I did that sometimes, but once a quarter, I made a point to fly commercial on one of my own planes, unannounced. It was the only way to get a real feel for the customer experience, to see the cracks that don't show up in corporate reports. I wore a simple gray hoodie, comfortable joggers, and a pair of noise-canceling headphones around my neck. To anyone looking, I was just another passenger, maybe one who'd splurged on a first-class ticket with frequent flyer miles. That's what they saw. A middle-aged couple, dripping with the kind of aggressive wealth that mistakes price tags for personality, stopped dead in the aisle beside my seat. The man wore a suit that was too tight in the shoulders, and the woman clutched a designer handbag like it was a life preserver. They exchanged a look, a quick, sharp glance that conveyed an entire conversation of disdain. I'd seen that look 1,000 times in my life. It was the look that questions your presence, your right to occupy a space they believe is reserved for them. The woman, whose face was pulled into a mask of polite condescension, leaned over. "Excuse me," she said, her voice a little too loud. "I think you might be in our seat." I offered a small, patient smile. I'd been up since 4 a.m., dealing with a logistics crisis in our Singapore hub, and I wasn't in the mood for conflict, but I knew how to handle this. "I don't believe so," I said calmly, gesturing to the seat number above my head. "This is 1A. "Yes, exactly," the man chimed in, stepping forward. He held out his boarding passes with a flourish, as if presenting a royal decree. "And we are in 1A and 1B. Perhaps you misread your ticket." I didn't even need to look at his passes. I knew for a fact that seats 1A and 1B on this flight had been blocked for me for 3 months. I pulled out my phone, opened our airline's app, and showed him my digital boarding pass, clearly displaying my name and seat 1A. His eyes narrowed, scanning the screen. He saw my name, but it clearly meant nothing to him. All he saw was a man in a hoodie where he expected to be. "Well, there's obviously been a mistake," the woman huffed, waving down a passing flight attendant. "A computer glitch or something. This gentleman has been assigned our seat." A young flight attendant named Sarah, according to her name tag, hurried over, her expression already strained. She was new. I could tell by the slight panic in her eyes. "Is there a problem here, sir, ma'am?" "Yes," the man boomed, puffing out his chest. "We are platinum tier, million-mile members, and we are booked in these seats. This man refuses to move." Sarah looked from them to me, her gaze apologetic. "Sir, could I please see your boarding pass?" I showed her my phone again. She scanned it with her device, and a green check mark appeared. She then took the man's paper tickets and scanned them. A soft negative beep sounded. Her face paled slightly. "I'm so sorry, sir," she said to the man, "but your assigned seats are 4C and 4D. This gentleman is correctly seated in 1A. The woman let out a sound somewhere between a gasp and a scoff. "That's impossible. We always fly in the front row. Always. There must be something you can do." "Check again." Sarah, bless her heart, tried. She scanned them again. Same result. "I'm terribly sorry," she stammered. "The system is showing this is the correct seating arrangement. Perhaps there was an issue at the check-in desk." This was the wrong thing to say. The man's face turned a dangerous shade of crimson. "An issue? The issue is that your airline's computer system is clearly incompetent, or you've given our seats away. I want to speak to your supervisor. Now." The tension was becoming a spectacle. Other first-class passengers were starting to stare. I could feel the flight's departure time ticking closer, and a delay caused by a scene in the first-class cabin was the last thing I wanted. Sarah spoke into her wrist device, and a few moments later, the head purser, a man named David who I recognized from a recent commendation report, arrived. He was a veteran, exuding an air of calm authority. The couple immediately launched into their tirade, embellishing the story, painting me as an uncooperative intruder and Sarah as an inept employee. David listened patiently, his eyes flicking over to me. I remained silent, watching him, curious to see how our senior staff handled this kind of pressure. This was exactly the sort of real-world test I couldn't simulate in a boardroom. After they finished, David gave them a practiced, placating smile. He didn't ask to see my boarding pass. He didn't re-verify the seats. He just assessed the situation. A visibly distressed young flight attendant, 2 loud, belligerent, and expensively dressed passengers, and 1 quiet man in a hoodie. He made a calculation. He chose the path of least resistance. He turned to me, his professional smile never wavering, and in a low, conspiratorial tone, he made the decision that would seal his fate. "Sir," he began, "I understand this is a terrible inconvenience, but to avoid delaying the entire aircraft, we're going to have to ask you to move." I felt a profound sense of disappointment wash over me. It was a cold, sinking feeling that had nothing to do with the seat itself and everything to do with the principle. This was the moment of truth. David had a choice: stand by his crew member who had correctly assessed the situation, or placate the louder, more demanding customers. He chose the latter. It was the easy path, the one that created the least friction in the moment, but it was a symptom of a deeper problem I was constantly trying to root out of my company culture. I looked at him, my expression unreadable. "And where, exactly, would you like me to move?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. The smug, triumphant grin that spread across the couple's faces was almost comical. The woman patted her husband's arm. "See, dear, a little bit of assertiveness is all it takes." David seemed relieved that I wasn't shouting. He probably mistook my calm for compliance. "We have an open seat in 3B, sir. It's still a window seat. And of course, for your trouble, we'd be happy to offer you a $300 travel voucher." $300. He was trying to buy me off, to quantify the cost of my dignity and my ticket. This wasn't about the money. This was about a systemic failure unfolding right before my eyes. Sarah, the young flight attendant, stood behind him, looking utterly mortified. She knew this was wrong. Her gaze met mine for a fleeting second, and in it I saw an apology. She was the only one in this interaction who had acted with integrity. "I'm not interested in a voucher," I said, my voice as level as a horizon. "And I'm not interested in seat 3B. I'm interested in why a ticketed passenger who has done nothing wrong is being forcibly removed from his confirmed seat to appease 2 people who are ticketed for row 4. I turned my head slightly, my eyes landing on the couple, and who, I might add, have been rude and disruptive since the moment they boarded. The man's face went from crimson to a strange, blotchy purple. "How dare you? We are the victims here." David's professional facade began to crack. His smile tightened. "Sir, I'm trying to be reasonable. If you continue to be uncooperative, we will miss our departure window. I'm not asking you anymore. I'm telling you, for the good of the other 256 passengers on this flight, you need to move. Now." He had just crossed a line. He had framed me as the problem. He had threatened me. The entire first-class cabin was now silent, all eyes on our little drama. This was no longer a customer service test. This was a leadership failure at 30,000 feet. I leaned back in my seat, making myself comfortable. I looked David dead in the eye. "You're invoking an on-time departure. That's a serious issue. If I am the person preventing that, then this is no longer a simple seating dispute. It's a security issue. And if it's a security issue, it needs to be handled by the highest authority on this aircraft. Get the captain." A collective gasp went through the cabin. "You don't ask for the captain unless the plane is on fire." David's jaw dropped. "The captain is preparing for takeoff. He does not get involved in cabin seating arrangements. He does when a passenger is being threatened with removal by the head purser," I countered smoothly. "If you're going to remove me, it needs to be done by the book. And the book says the captain has the final word. So go get him." David was trapped. He knew I was right, but getting the captain would mean admitting he'd lost control of the situation. It was a career-ending move. He stood there, sputtering, trying to find the words to refuse. The entitled couple was now looking a little less certain, realizing this had escalated beyond their control. I am not getting the captain," David finally said, his voice shaking with a mixture of anger and fear. "My authority is sufficient. Now, for the last time." Fine," I cut him off. I reached into my hoodie pocket and pulled out my phone. "If you won't bring the captain to me, I'll have to escalate this another way." I held his gaze as I typed a short, simple text message. I didn't look away from his eyes. I pressed send. A moment of tense silence hung in the air. The man in the suit scoffed. "What are you going to do? Complain on Twitter?" Then, a vibration. It wasn't my phone. It was David's. He instinctively reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his personal cell phone. He glanced at the screen, expecting a text from his wife or a friend. But his face went completely white. His eyes widened in sheer, unadulterated panic. Every drop of color drained from his face as he stared at the caller ID, his hand trembling so badly he almost dropped the phone. The name on David's screen was Marcus Thorne, Executive Vice President of Fleet Operations, my right-hand man. The text I had sent him was simple. "Call the purser on my flight. Now." David looked from his phone to my face, a dawning horror spreading across his features. The gears were turning, clicking into place with agonizing slowness. He saw the expensive noise-canceling headphones, the calm demeanor that bordered on absolute authority, the confidence to demand the captain. He saw the name on my digital boarding pass again in his mind's eye, J. Williams. And suddenly it connected. James Williams, the founder and CEO. The man whose face was on the cover of the in-flight magazine, currently tucked into the seat pocket in front of him. He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. Mr. Williams," he whispered, the name barely audible. The phone in his hand kept vibrating, a relentless summons from a man he knew could end his career with a single word. The entitled couple hadn't made the connection yet. "What's going on now?" the man blustered, trying to regain control. "Who is this Williams?" I ignored him. My attention was fixed on David. I gave a slow, deliberate nod. "Answer your phone, David." With a hand that shook like a leaf in a storm, David swiped to answer. He held the phone to his ear, his eyes locked on mine. Hello? Mr. Thorne?" His voice was a squeak. I couldn't hear Marcus's side of the conversation, but I could imagine it. It would be short, direct, and utterly terrifying for the man on the receiving end. David listened, his face becoming even paler, if that was possible. "Yes, sir." "I understand, sir." "He is—" "Yes, I see that now, sir. Of course." He hung up, his arm falling to his side as if it weighed 1,000 pounds. He turned to the couple. The practiced, professional smile was gone, replaced by a mask of cold fury and raw panic. "Ma'am, sir," he said, his voice now crisp and devoid of any warmth. "Your assigned seats are 4C and 4D. Please take them immediately, or you will be removed from this aircraft for failure to comply with crew instructions." The couple was stunned into silence. The whiplash of the situation was too much for them. "But you said—" the woman stammered. "I was mistaken," David clipped, his eyes still wide with fear. "The matter is not up for discussion. Move. Now." He didn't wait for a reply. He turned on his heel and walked stiffly towards the galley, avoiding my gaze. He needed a moment to process the fact that he had just tried to kick the owner of the entire airline out of his own first-class seat. The couple, deflated and humiliated, finally seemed to understand they had lost. With the entire cabin now watching them in silence, they gathered their things and made the walk of shame 3 rows back, stuffing their oversized egos and carry-ons into the Economy Plus section of the first-class cabin. A moment later, Sarah, the young flight attendant, approached my seat. Her hands were clasped in front of her, and she looked down at the floor. "Mr. Williams," she said softly, "I am so sorry. I knew it was wrong. I should have—" I held up a hand to stop her. "Sarah," I said, and for the first time, I let a genuine smile touch my face. You did everything right. You checked the tickets, you followed procedure, and you stood your ground until your superior overruled you. You showed integrity. That's more valuable than 100 on-time departures. Her head snapped up, her eyes wide with surprise and relief. A small tear welled in the corner of her eye. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me, I said. You've earned it, and when we land, I want you to email my office. We're going to be talking about a promotion to the team that develops our in-flight customer service training protocols. Your perspective is exactly what we need. She was speechless, just nodding with a mixture of shock and gratitude before returning to her duties. As the cabin door closed and the plane began to push back from the gate, I finally leaned back and closed my eyes. The incident had been unpleasant, but it had also been incredibly illuminating. It revealed a weak link in our chain of command and a star employee who might have otherwise gone unnoticed. David would be reassigned, sent for intensive retraining on de-escalation and corporate policy. He wouldn't be fired, I believe, in second chances, but he would never again make the mistake of choosing the easy wrong over the hard right. As we ascended into the clouds, breaking through the gray into brilliant sunshine, I felt a sense of purpose. This is why I did this. Not for the leather seats or the legroom, but for the moments like this, to ensure that everyone who flew with us, from the platinum tier members to the family flying on a budget, was treated with dignity and respect. And to remind my employees from the head purser down to the newest flight attendant that integrity isn't just a word in a corporate mission statement. It's the engine that keeps us flying.